of the trees regarding our gender identity and sexuality. When there's no place like home, empty air, an empty establishment. Friends with Dorothy, fighting for your civil rights, out on the cruel streets tonight.
We're back to the International Dublin Gay Theatre Festival, and we're joined today by not only the author of Death of Me, but also the main star as well. So welcome, Sean Denyer and Rachel Fayne to LGBTQ+life.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sean, I'm going to start with yourself being the dramatist, I suppose is the best way to put it. It's not your first play, but what got you into writing plays to begin with?
Well, it was a kind of strange route into it, really. I was kind of living in Sligo, and my husband had set up this kind of drama group kind of in Sligo, and they anyway, they worked away, and it turns out they were really a mainly LGBT drama group, unbeknownst to him at the time. And they were doing a play. Somebody dropped out. I was instructed that I had to be in the play to replace this person that dropped out, and I hadn't done any kind of drama stuff for years and years and years. So I did that, and I really enjoyed it. Now, then when Howard kind of moved to Dublin, and I was working between Dublin and Sligo, I sort of carried the group on. And we were looking to do a play, of course, and we just couldn't find one that suited the group. There were very few kind of queer-based plays with an Irish context anyway, and I couldn't find anything that kind of would fit the particular group. So I thought, oh, well, I'll have a go at writing one. Mm-hmm. So that was the kind of start to it, really, sort of by accident.
So which play was that? Because I noticed this isn't your first play, Sean.
Now, what was that play called? Oh, Just What I Always Wanted, it was called. Yeah.
Typically enough, yeah. Rachel, before we start talking about your thespian qualities, I gather there's a rumor that I hear during the rounds that you might have recently got engaged. How correct is that?
Yes, I recently got engaged. Yeah. It was a huge shock. I was like, oh my goodness. But it was brilliant. It's funny actually looking back on my kind of Facebook page, you know, because obviously around now, it being May, it was the run up to the marriage referendum. Mm-hmm. And it seems so natural now that I'm engaged. It's hard to imagine that only 7 years ago, I wasn't even able to get engaged. You know, I couldn't have gotten married. You know, we could have had a civil partnership. And that actually was one of the wonderful things I found in acting, was we did a play called The Ref after the referendum about the No campaign and how difficult it was during it, because we were told we needed to be on our best behaviour and that we couldn't challenge the No campaign really. So we were able to then come back with a play where we were really able to say all the things that we wanted to say but couldn't say to them. You know, it was really, really good. It was really kind of healing experience for me. Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to say, I know the person that you're getting engaged to, and I just wish you both the very best for a long, happy, healthy, and prosperous life together. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm absolutely delighted. I hope she is too.
I won't mention somebody's name without their permission on air, but she's a fabulous person. I've known her for the best part of 10 years, and between both of you, I'm sure you'll have a great time. Sean, Rachel has just referenced a play there called The Ref, which you wrote, of course.
I did.
That May 2015, it's almost like it's hardwired into my brain. I think any of us who took part in that campaign, and didn't start in 2015.
No.
So it's never going to go out of our consciousness because it was so important then. What's your memory of it? Is it the same that this was our Roe versus Wade to a certain degree, since that's in the news today?
Yes, but I remember it as a very traumatic time, actually, because I have children, and there was a huge emphasis on the No campaign put on how unfit we were to be parents. And that was very kind of disturbing to me and also to my children. They were so angry about all of that. So yeah, it was a very traumatic time, and it's kind of easy to forget, you know, the results day were so joyful and uplifting. But the day before, we were actually terrified that it wouldn't pass. You know, we're like, what are we going to do if it doesn't? You know, so, and it's interesting you mentioned kind of Roe versus Wade, because I think that's also been a theme in a number of our pieces, like the decriminalization monologues. The last thing we did, you can't take your rights for granted. You know, we know in the US. The next group to be, well, trans people in the US are already being attacked all the time. And, you know, the rest of the LGBTQ+ community is next on the list, you know. So, you know, you're already hearing rumours that they'll kind of row back on the kind of marriage equality. So we can't take anything for granted, you know, much as Dublin and Ireland is a great place now to be queer. It wasn't always the case until quite recently, very recently, kind of historically. And it could, you know, we can't assume that it's always going to be like that. So we have to be watchful.
Rachel, I'm going to put something to you. You grew up in not one of the very upper middle class areas of Dublin. You could even say it was potentially a working class area. And one of the things that struck me when I was out at the count for the RDS was the unequivocal support in the working class areas, particularly on the north side where I came from. Most people would have said that the working classes were more conservative, but what was your experience growing up as an LGBT woman in the area that you did?
Yeah, I actually felt really safe. Now, I'm not sure if it was more to do with my family than anything, but I certainly had a very positive experience of growing up gay. I never felt threatened, possibly as well because I'm a woman, you know, it was possibly a little less difficult. My family were very, very accepting. My community was very accepting. I wouldn't have felt particularly safe coming out in school, not until I was a good bit older, but I did, you know, but I was like, I think I came out in school when I was about 18. I was an older student, and my family I came out to when I was 16, and I never really had a negative experience. So the referendum in a way was quite traumatic because they had that equal balance between, you know, we have to give a balanced view. So while we're doing our interviews on RTE and things like that, we have to have the No campaign as well as the Yes campaign. And it kind of lended weight to it that it didn't have. Like I kind of, because the presentation of the view was so balanced, it meant that we got 50-50 airtime, say. And that almost made it feel like then 50% of the country were against us. But we learned that wasn't the case. And I know, like I grew up in Tala, and I've been living in Ballyfermot for about 11 years. So I was in Ballyfermot at the time. I remember going campaigning in Ballyfermot and it being such a positive experience. It was overwhelming, and I think their result was up in the high 80s, if not low 90s. It was crazy how affirming they were. And you know, I'm not sure why it is. I don't know if that they have so many problems in their life that they can realize how trivial this is. Or that they live in bigger communities and bigger families, so they all know somebody who's gay. There's a gay person in every family if you have kind of a larger family. So it could be that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Sean, I just want to come back to something you said, that you were saying even up to 24 hours beforehand, you were apprehensive about the outcome. Now, probably because I was involved in the campaign so much, I had never any doubt about it. The day before, one of the fundamentalist Christian groups who I, talked to from time to time, they came to me and they said, "Oh, I think it's going to be close," and all of that. And I said, "No chance." I said, "Probably 2-1." And I'll even put money on that. And they backed away. But do you think that was more a personal reflection than what the reality?
No, lots of people, lots of my friends. I mean, I felt very positive about it, I have to say, about the result all the way kind of through, even though I found the referendum and being constantly talked about, having to explain myself, to every person I ever met, was quite, kind of challenging. It was just the day before, and I just had a sudden, what if this, doesn't go as planned, and we met with a group of friends and they were all kind of feeling the same. I think it was probably just, the months and months of having to hear all this stuff, and just thinking, well, sometimes things don't go as you imagine they're going to go. But yeah, when the result came, I thought, yes, of course it was going to be the result,
Rachel, if I could come back, Rachel's lost her. You've lost your sound there, Rachel, just for a second. Yeah, Rachel, if I could, were you at the Dublin Castle on the day, or where were you?
Yeah, I was at Dublin Castle on the day, and it was actually really one of the things that was really special. I mean, I woke up really early because I was so nervous and turned on the TV at about 9 a.m. and it had already been announced and the No campaign had conceded. And I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't. I was just so happy, and I woke up my roommate, and I thought it was going to be a long count. I thought we'd be hours waiting. So when the No campaign conceded so early, I was like, oh my god. So we ended up going into Dublin Castle about 10 o'clock in the morning. There wasn't a dinner there, so we had to go for breakfast and come back. So we were right up the front, and it was really, one of the things that was really special about it was that because we were right up the front of the Dublin Castle, it meant there was cameras everywhere, news reporters from all over the world. So I ended up in a gorgeous video that BBC published, that we then got to use for the ref. So we Sean made a kind of video montage of some of the footage from the day from Dublin Castle. So I was playing, obviously, somebody from in the ref. I was playing Suzanne, who I actually play again in this play, who was a big part of the Yes campaign. So then at the end, we played this video and it was me, but obviously I was technically the character as well. So it was this amazing experience, and it was a beautiful video that we got to play at the end of the ref. It was really, really special. Yeah.
I'll have to look back on my archives, because I was one of those photographers and camera people that were capturing the day.
Oh, fabulous.
So I'll have a look and see if I can find you there. But Sean, I just want to come back to yourself on this one, because I suspect from your speaking voice, you didn't grow up in Ireland. Now,
how could you that idea?
Be capers now. But unfortunately, for my sins, I did. And I grew up in an Ireland of those dark ages. And that day in May was the first time, and I was, what was it? I was over 60 at that stage. It's the first time I have ever felt proud to be Irish. I've never been a nationalist. I've never gone for all of that hooja. And that was the first day that I ever felt, because this was to me, this was an authentic voice of Ireland rather than a hegemonic voice of Ireland. As somebody potentially looking in, how did you judge the nation then? Did it blow away a few of the stereotypes you might have grown up with?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I've been in Ireland a long time, so I've seen it kind of make a journey from, I was here just when I think, shortly after decriminalisation happened. So I've been here from there. from then kind of to now, and I've seen an amazing transformation, really, in a very, you know, kind of short period of time, kind of historically. And you know, stereotypes are, if you know people, when you meet people, that was partly why the referendum got such a positive kind of result, because it was all about people knowing people or hearing their stories, and saying, well, actually, this doesn't fit, this kind of scaremonger. It doesn't really fit with the person I know. That's a load of old rubbish, you know.
Okay.
So I think I wasn't. I was very proud of the country at that point, you know, and you know, I think it was like the signifier of what a much more welcoming kind of place it had become. And I think partly that's the history, you know, too, because, you know, there's a very dark history, you know, to the way Irish society has treated people, not just queer people, but women, you know, people, you know, socially disadvantaged people from the traveller community. You know, the history is not good, you know, and I think, you know, there's been a great recognition of that. And I think part of the vote was about, you know, recognizing that, you know, saying, well, we're not going, you know, we don't want to be a country that treats people in a way that we don't want to be treated, you know, and I think that's really good.
Yeah, let's move on now, Rachel. So you're going to have to fix your microphone there. Acting. Did you come across much discouragement when you decided that was a path you'd like to follow, or were you just one of those women who had so much self-confidence that I'm going to do this irrespective of what they think?
I actually joined ActingOut as a way to meet other LGBT people. I was kind of looking around for a way to meet more LGBT friends, and I saw ActingOut advertised, and I'd remember doing a little bit of kind of drama when I was younger in school, and I was like, yeah, that was good fun. I think I'll try that out. But and the minute I joined the group, I loved it. I loved the kind of the sense of fun of it and the sense of connection that I got with the other members. And then it's kind of funny, actually. I kind of joined hoping to maybe meet a lady friend. I ended up being the only L in the whole LGBT group for about 4 years. But it worked out in the end. Yeah, so really, I mean, I loved the games from the start, but then once we put a show on, that was an addiction right there. It was like the adrenaline that I got from it, I just absolutely loved, and I couldn't get enough of it, really. And thankfully, ActingOut is quite dynamic in the sense we tend to do a lot. Sean, as a producer, is very ambitious, and we tend to do between 3 and 6 productions a year, which is mental when you think that we're not full time. You know, we're all people with our own jobs and our own lives, and we just have a passion for it, and just spend most of our spare time doing it so that we can come up with really solid, strong productions.
Sure, yeah. Sean, I'm going to come back to you. We're back at the International Dublin Gay Theatre Festival. It's back live for the first time since 2019. How important do you think it is? I know Brian has done a fabulous job while it was, if you like, virtual, but how important do you think live theatre is?
Oh, I think it's tremendously important because it gives a place for queer stories to be told, and you know, that doesn't happen as much as it should do. You know, we recently we were lucky enough to get kind of funded to do a tour of the criminalisation monologues around some of the smaller places in Ireland. We deliberately wanted to go to the places that didn't usually get the opportunity to see these sorts of things, and you know, we had a fantastic reaction. We had a Q&A session after every sort of performance, and it was incredibly moving what people told us about their lives and their kind of experience. And you know, when we as part of the marriage referendum campaign, our contribution, we did a piece of kind of short plays And we took that to Cork as well. We had a great night there. And I got some really moving emails from people who've been in the audience saying it was the first time they'd seen their life represented on an Irish stage, you know. So the festival, you know, provides a sort of vehicle for, you know, lots of stories to kind of be told. And also you get international companies, so there's, you know, companies from the States and Canada and the UK, and you know, so you get to see, it's a rare opportunity to get to see the queer work from other places as well, which is really important. And it's very kind of social festival too. There's a lot of kind of mixing of participants and the creatives, so it's a really yeah, very significant feature, and it's the biggest LGBT festival, a drama festival in the world. You know, which should be something that should be celebrated, you would think.
Well, you would think that the Arts Council would have reviewed their decision not to fund it, but that's a separate matter. But Rachel, going back to yourself, this is a play about a woman who makes a life-changing discovery about herself. But it's a very universal story in the sense that it's a story that affects women all around the world, all through the ages. Do you think that men are basically get women's health in that sense? And I'm not making any judgment on Sean, because whether it's, if you like, reproductive rights or sexual health or just general health, do you think men understand how the impact of certain decisions impact women, and particularly the one we're talking about in this play?
Yeah, so Suzanne discovers that she has a lump on her breast, and I think maybe perhaps the difference with women's health that can make things more complicated is similar to the differences that affect women in women's life, that make women's lives in general quite different, is their intense role as caregivers within the family, even when they have very supportive partners. There's an expectation on women to be the caregivers of the family, and women are kind of taught that from a very young age. Like, I know in my own family, I'm not the eldest, but I'm the eldest girl. So I feel like if something bad was to ever happen to anyone in the family, it would be my job to hold the family together. And I was just brought up with that feeling, that sense, from looking at my auntie, who's the oldest in her family. And I think with Suzanne, one of the things that she finds really hard is not so much how difficult cancer is for her. It's that she's looking at her family and she's heartbroken. She's heartbroken for her son, and she's worried about her wife, and she's powerless over that. And that's almost worse for her than having to deal with her own mortality.
Sure. Sean, coming back to yourself, how did you approach this? Because clearly it's a subject you perhaps may not have personally experienced, but perhaps people around you may have. Did you talk to people who have been in that position to get into their, if you like, their psychology about how they feel when they get such a diagnosis?
Well, I'm a doctor by trade.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have had quite a lot of kind of experience of people in those sorts of situations, and people facing very, very dark kind of news, and having to kind of navigate that kind of process. But of course, inevitably, I also know kind of friends of mine, several friends of mine have had kind of breast cancer and had to go through the process. So I was kind of interested about writing something which was about dying. And I think it's, if you see people go through that process, it's a process you only do on your own, really. I think it's kind of very interesting. I think one of the key the themes of the play is the difficulty of trying to manage that process when you're also trying to manage everybody else's feelings about it. You know, because people, of course, around you, they're so desperate to want to help you, but they just have no idea about what do or how to do it, and I thought that was kind of just an interesting thing to explore. And the other, I suppose, key issue within the kind of play is, Rachel was alluding to sort of women's relationships in kind of families. The key thing in the kind of play is the relationship between Suzanne and her mother, which has not been great for kind of most of her life. And in the way this event forces a sort of reckoning about that. And so, so those are the kind of themes I was kind of interested in, but I also wanted to make it a comedy. I mean, it does have very touching moments, I think, too. But it's a comedy too, because again, my kind of experience would be that even in the most tragic situations, people find the humor in them. It's a way that they cope with it, and that really comes out in the play, where Suzanne joins kind of reluctantly a support group of cancer or women going through or having been through kind of cancer kind of treatment. And that's where she finds her real support, because these people know exactly what she's going through, and they can joke about it, and they can take the piss out of each other in a way that the people who love her, surrounding her, just aren't able to. So, again, going back to the women, how supportive women can be of each other is another theme that comes out of the play.
Yeah. Rachel, just before we get to telling people the important bit about how they can come and see this play, you're at a different stage of your life, in the sense that because you become engaged, you get, if you like, the yellow brick road approach, that life hopefully will be wonderful, because that's what we all want it to be. Has this play made you focus on perhaps the less sweet sides of life?
A little bit. I mean, in some ways the play is really balanced, because it's, on the one hand, it's kind of saying, things can go really badly wrong, and that's very unfair. But on the other hand, it's also saying you need to kind of appreciate every minute you have as well. One of the things that does strike me is that, she's reflecting on what she'll miss, because she's quite young. And the kind of things that she's saying, what she's going to miss, are all the things that I'm hopeful to have in my own life. So that always kind of strikes me when I'm at that part of the play, and when she's reflecting in that sense. Yeah. But it is hopeful as well. The play is quite hopeful as well, in terms of just appreciating what you have and the time that you do have. I just had a birthday recently, and I'm approaching an age that would normally be quite upsetting. Now, not for 2 years, but still, it's closer. But at the same time, all I was thinking was, you know what? Aging is a privilege denied to many, and it's so much better than the alternative.
Yeah, unless, of course, you're in prison, but that's a separate matter. Yeah. So I'm just going to let you have the last word on this. So tell people where the play is on and how they can get to see it, and when it kicks off next week, I gather.
Yeah, okay. So it's on in the Ireland Institute, which is at 27 Pearse Street, kind of in town, in a nice little kind of theatre that they have there.
It's a fabulous theatre.
Yeah, it's great. And it's on from Monday the 9th of May to Saturday the 14th at 7:30 in the evenings, and then there's a matinee at 2:30 on Saturday the 14th as well. And you can get your tickets and find out about all the other shows, all the other great shows that are on the kind of festival at www.gaytheatre.ie.
Look, Rachel, I'm going to say that great theatrical expression to you, break a leg. And Sean, I just hope, we wish you all the very best, because it's great to see live theatre back in Dublin again, and particularly live LGBTQ+ theatre. So Rachel Fayne and Sean Denyer, we're delighted to have you as guests today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Friends with Dorothy, come out off the sidewalk, and I'm to the street, to the sound those legendary feet. When there's no place like home, anti-him, anti-establishment. With the chaff and the short straw, they'll have us stuck for sure. Anti-him, I'm anti-establishment. They took my name and the clothes I own. They broke our hearts, but not our souls. When there's no place like home, when there's no place like home, when there's no place like home.